A gang of cattle thieves squats in a malarial swamp. No walls worth the name, no money, barely any women. The river floods, the air is sick. Every neighbor is older, richer, better armed, and any one of them could wipe this out in an afternoon. A few lifetimes later, that swamp owns the world. Forget the marble, forget the eagles. It didn't win because it was great. It won because it did one thing nobody else would do. Stay with me and you'll understand why that exact thing is what killed it. If you live in a powerful country, that should bother you. Here's the story Rome told about itself. Not history, legend. Written down centuries later by Romans looking backward, inventing a childhood worthy of the monster they had become. And look what they chose. They said their city opened as an asylum. Come one, come all. Debtors, runaways, exiles, killers, anyone with nothing to lose. That is the founding brochure. A refuge for men nobody else wanted. It worked. They got fighters. What they didn't get was a future. Almost no women. One generation, and the whole thing dies of old age. So they took them. They invited the neighbors to a festival. Whole families. Mid-celebration, the men of Rome seized the young women and drove the fathers out. Rome's own myth about its own birth is a mass abduction. Again, legend. Nothing we can verify. But ask yourself why a people would invent that and be proud of it. Then came the kings, and the last one's son raped a nobleman's wife. Lucretia, she named him. Then she killed herself. The city detonated. They threw out the monarchy and swore one oath. Never again would a king rule Rome. Remember that oath. It comes back. Now here's the part that doesn't fit the statues. Rome was not a nation of military geniuses. Rome lost. Constantly. Beaten by neighbors you have never heard of. Beaten by hill tribes with worse gear. Beaten so badly that one day a Gallic warband walked into the city. Livy says they burned it, stripped it, that Rome hit on the capital and paid them to leave. Archaeology finds no burnt city. The legend is bigger than the ash layer. But Rome still lost, and everyone saw it. Every rival Rome faced was better at war. So how does the loser end up owning everything? Not the sword, not the eagles, paperwork. Here is what everyone else did with a beaten enemy. Kill the men, enslave the rest, take the land, and rule the survivors as subjects. Forever. Athens did it, Sparta did it, Persia, in its own way, did it. Almost everyone before Rome did it. Rome did something that made no sense. Rome offered the people it had beaten a deal. Fight for us, and you become us. Not slaves, not subjects, Romans. Rights, property, a road into the machine, eventually the vote. Your grandchildren would be citizens of the thing that conquered you. Historians still argue about how deliberate it was. The core of it is mainstream. Citizenship, not tactics, is why Rome won. Sack a rich city, you get plunder once. Absorb an Italian town, and Rome gets soldiers every year, forever. Every war Rome survived made Rome heavier. Its enemies became its next army. Which means when a rival state lost an army, it was finished. When Rome lost an army, Rome reached into the pile and pulled out another one. Its manpower was effectively infinite, and it was about to need every man. Because across the water sat a real empire. Carthage, old, rich, and master of the sea. Rome was no sea power. A few patrol ships, borrowed Greek squadrons. Against Carthage, nothing that could fight a fleet. So, and this is the most Roman thing in this entire story, they found an enemy warship wrecked on a beach, took it apart, and copied it. Then they built 100 more. Farmers who had never seen open water learned to row on benches in the sand. Carthaginian crews had 400 years at sea. Roman crews had months. On open water, Rome dies. So Rome refused to have a sea battle. Polybius describes what they bolted to the bow. A bridge. With a spike under the nose of it, the Roman ship closes, the plank drops, and the spike bites into enemy timber. Then the legionaries walk across. And the sea fight has quietly become an infantry fight, the one thing on earth Romans are good at. Rome did not get better at Carthage's game. Rome canceled the game. That is the whole empire in one piece of wood. Carthage never found an answer to it. The sea did. That bridge sat high in the bow. The ships handled like drunks in a swell. Polybius says Rome lost fleets the way other states lose regiments. Hundreds of ships. Tens of thousands of men. Mostly not to Carthage. To weather. The worst of them, 255, is the largest naval disaster in the ancient record. Those numbers are ancient and historians distrust them. Have them. Still obscene. Any rational state concedes the sea here. Rome built the fleet again. Private citizens paid for the hulls out of their own pockets. The thesis of this video proving itself in saltwater before Hannibal is born. So Carthage stopped fighting Rome at sea and sent one man overland. Hannibal took an army out of Spain, across southern Gaul, and into the Alps in autumn, with elephants. The elephants are real. Almost all of them died. So did thousands of men, on ice, on ambushed passes. He came down into Italy with a fraction of what he started with, and destroyed the first Roman army that met him, then the second, then the third, and Rome kept sending them, until one walked onto a field called Cannae. Hannibal put his weakest men in the center and told them to give ground, on purpose. The Romans pushed, the middle bent, the legions poured into the gap. It was not a gap, it was a mouth. The wings folded inward. A smaller army closed a ring around a larger one, in open field, and men died standing because there was nowhere to fall. Livy counts 48,000, Polybius says 70. Some modern historians cut that in half. Nobody agrees on the number. Everybody agrees on the afternoon. A generation of a city died in a single afternoon. War colleges still teach it. Any state on earth surrenders here. Rome didn't. Rome sent no envoys. Rome made it shameful to say the word peace. It armed teenagers. It bought enslaved men and put swords in their hands. Years later, Hannibal camped outside the walls, and the story goes the ground under his tent was calmly auctioned off inside the city while he stood on it. He won every battle and still lost, because Rome would not accept that it had lost. The weapon wasn't courage. The weapon was that Rome could not be told no. But that is only half of why he lost. Hannibal never had the men to storm the city. He knew that. He didn't need them. His entire strategy was one sentence: break the armies, and Italy changes sides. That wasn't a gamble. That was how the world worked. Beat the master, and the subjects joined the winner. So he broke army after army after army. Then he stood there in the middle of Italy, undefeated, and waited for Italy to defect. Mostly, it didn't. Be honest, part of it did. Capua went over. Much of the south went over. That was real, and it hurt. But the Latin colonies in central Italy overwhelmingly stayed. With the greatest general alive camped in their fields, burning their crops, offering them freedom from Rome. They said no. Not out of love, because they already had land, rights, a stake, a road into the machine, and their grandchildren were going to be Romans. Hannibal was offering them what Rome had already given. That is the paperwork, under maximum pressure, holding. He beat the Roman army. He could not beat Roman citizenship. So Carthage burned. Greece folded. Spain, Gaul, Egypt. The swamp village now owned every coast of the Mediterranean. They named it Mare Nostrum, our sea. Loot came home in rivers. Gold, grain, hundreds of thousands of enslaved people. The men nobody wanted now owned everybody. And this is the exact moment the machine turns around and eats the people who built it. Here is the problem with a weapon that runs on conquest. It has to keep paying. More war, more land, more citizens, more soldiers, forever. Then Rome changed who its soldiers were. For centuries, a legionary was a farmer. You needed property to serve. Marius opened the ranks to the landless poor. Rome got a bottomless supply of volunteers. A man with no farm has to be handed one when the war ends. And Rome had no pension, no system, no provision, only whatever his general could force from the Senate. Historians argue about how much Marius intended. Nobody argues about the result. Payday had a face, and it wasn't Rome's. He gave you the farmland. He gave you the silver. He fed you for 20 years in countries you couldn't pronounce. The Senate gave you a vote you never used and a word: duty. So when someone asked who the army belonged to, the answer stopped being Rome. The answer was his name. The legions were not Rome's legions. They were somebody's. It only needed one man to say it out loud. Remember the oath? Never again would a king rule Rome. Here is where it snaps. A vote stripped Sulla of his command. Legally, correctly. He walked out to where his soldiers were and told them what the city had done to their land and to their money. Then he turned the legions around and marched them on Rome itself. Not a foreign capital, Rome. Every officer but one refused and left him. Not one soldier did. 500 years of the deepest taboo in the Roman world turned out to be nothing but a habit. After Sulla, it was a road. The road ended at Caesar. The Republic did not fall to a foreign enemy. No barbarian took it. It was taken by its own army, led by its own hero, paid for with its own conquests. The village of outcasts built a machine that could turn strangers into Romans. It never built one that could turn generals back into citizens. Rome took everything it could see. Loyalty was the one country it never took. A swamp full of thieves took the world in 5 centuries, then lost itself to its own weapon. Every empire carries the thing that kills it from the very first day. If this rewired how you see power, subscribe to Empire Archives. Because the real question is, which empire dies next? I'll see you there.